Hey guys, it's Nailbiter, and I've got another Battlefield 3 video here for you guys. And in this video, I thought I'd talk about, or I'd show you guys some gameplay from a different class than the Assault class. And I've been doing a lot with the Assault class since the patch was released a few weeks ago. And so I thought I'd try to change it up a little bit more and show you guys some gameplay from some different classes. And so in this video, I wanted to talk about what's become, I'd say, probably my favorite class setup to use in the Engineer class. And that is, as you'll see throughout this gameplay, that's the M4A1, and the attachments I'm using are the foregrip and flash suppressor, and then later you'll see I have a red dot sight equipped for the scope. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit about this setup. And first I'll talk about the M4A1. I think the M4A1 was, it was pretty good before the patch, so I don't really know if its statistics changed at all really post-patch. Just because, it was a pretty solid weapon before, and it's definitely just as good now, if not better. And I think with the setup that I'm using, it really accentuates its positives. And, I think this gun and probably the AKS-74U are, from what I've seen, the best two engineer weapons to use, the best two carbines or SMGs to use for the engineer class. And so, I think this setup would probably work with either one. The one thing that I do like a little bit about the M4A1 as opposed to the AKS-74U is that the M4A1 has a bit of a faster fire rate, so it's going to be a little bit better at close ranges, which I do like for the engineer weapons. I kind of think of engineer weapons as more of a close range, or the engineer class as a more of a close range kit, at least when you're taking on infantry. And that's where most of the guns excel. And so I kind of geared this setup towards, with that in mind, and so that's why I've got the foregrip and flash suppressor on, because the flash suppressor decreases recoil. And I know a lot of people do like to use the heavy barrel on these engineer weapons, but or in order to give them sort of that added range on the weapon. But I kind of prefer the flash suppressor just because it really just makes this gun extremely good at medium to close ranges. And as you'll see over the course of this video, I can take guys out pretty quickly with this setup. And I like to use the foregrip because it reduces a little bit of the recoil, and it doesn't increase the bullet spread, I think, a little bit, but I don't think it's that noticeable. And it's not like you really have any better options. I think you could just leave this attachment slot empty, or the attachment slot open. But I think the foregrip is probably good to have there, and it just kind of fills out this class, I think, nicely. So here you'll see I really just, at these close quarter situations, this gun is really, really good. And whereas in the long range encounters, it's not going to work as well. But I find that for the most part, that's not going to be a big deal when you're using the engineer class, just because when I use the engineer class, I tend to play as if, or I tend to play, more close to the enemy, and most of the encounters or the engagements that I get into are going to be close range. So I sort of set this class up to take advantage of that. So it does depend a little bit on the playstyle that you use, but I think that at least for the way I like to play the engineer class, if I'm not going to be focusing heavily on the vehicles, then this is a really good anti-infantry setup as well. And one other thing I wanted to mention about using the flash suppressor, especially also over the laser sight, because that's another option, especially for close range situations. I mean, you can kind of tell already the hip fire for this weapon is pretty good already, and with the laser sight, that would just probably make it ridiculous. I haven't even tried it out, but my guess is that would be pretty effective as well. But it's not really necessary, I think, just because you can already tell the crosshairs are pretty small anyways when I'm hip firing, and I think it works pretty well. So I like the flash suppressor more just because it does give you that reduced recoil as well, which I think that's always helpful, and it's definitely a worthwhile attachment to use. I think in general what I've found post patch is that either the flash suppressor or the heavy barrel is the best way to go for that third attachment slot. And I still like to use the foregrip, I'd say, for the most part. The exception of the underslung rail, I do like to use that from time to time, as I've talked about with with my favorite class setup that I talked about earlier with the M416. But for the most part, I think the combination of foregrip and heavy barrel, or foregrip and flash suppressor, is going to be really effective for the most part, and it's probably the best way to go if you want to reduce recoil. And with a gun like the M4A1, which I think is already sort of geared more towards those medium to close range situations, using this setup on this gun is going to be extremely effective. I think, as you really see over the course of this gameplay, it's definitely a setup that you can't really go wrong with, and it's really a gun that you can't go wrong with too. It's probably, I'd say, one of, if not the best, engineer weapons out there, like I mentioned earlier. One other thing I want to just quickly mention about this class setup is the pistol that I use, and I'm not sure if you really see me use it at all in this video, or if I even have it equipped. But what I found, I think, is really the best pistol to use. At least, I've talked a little bit about this before, but I like to usually balance my pistol with the weapon that I'm using. So if I'm using a long-range weapon and I want to use a pistol that's going to be really good at close ranges, so for example, with a sniper rifle, which is really good at long ranges, I generally want to use a pistol that can do really well at short ranges, so something like the G18 or the G18 suppressed, or even the Magnum or the Rex, which are both pretty good close range weapons or close range pistols as well. And so for this class setup, I would probably recommend using something that has a little more range to it, just because the M4A1 this setup's already pretty good at close ranges. I mean, it's pretty good at all ranges, with the exception of maybe really long ranges. So I'd probably say, either the Rex or the Magnum is a good pistol to use with this setup, but you could also use something like the M9. I think that's a good pistol as well to use. But I wouldn't use something like the G18, because I just think it's unnecessary and kind of redundant. And so, when you're going for a really good class setup, generally speaking, what I like to do is I try to sort of balance things out so that I can, get the most out of all the weapons that I have to, or out of all the options that I have to choose from, and to try to create the most balanced possible setup so that I can, engage targets at all ranges. But anyways, that's just about all I wanted to talk about in this video regarding this class setup. I hope you guys enjoyed this gameplay and just kind of this short little commentary. I haven't actually, it's been a little while since I've done a commentary, so I'll try to post these a little more often than I have the last couple weeks. I've been a little busier, so I'll try to get back into the habit of posting these a little more regularly. And now that the patch has been out, I'll probably settle back into doing some of these other videos that I was doing before the patch. And I did have another series that I wanted to start that I kind of had to postpone because of the patch, and I wanted to do some other stuff right after the patch was released. But now that it's been a few weeks, I think I'll probably just go back to the plan that I had beforehand. So anyways, thanks for watching this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys